Captain Alara Jansen sat quietly in the command chair of the Ardence Bridge, staring out at the stars as they passed by in a streak of light. The sleek starship, a marvel of human engineering, glided through space toward the distant Zendra system, carrying her on what seemed to be an ordinary diplomatic mission. The United Earth Federation, UEF, had sent her to negotiate a fragile peace between two alien species, the Quathians, an ancient and wise race, and the Kelshar, a fierce and warlike civilization. It wasn't the first time Alara had been assigned such a task, but something about this mission felt different. Alara was known across the UEF for her diplomatic acumen and her strategic mind. A career soldier turned negotiator, she understood the importance of carefully balancing power and diplomacy. Her reputation was one of calm under pressure, a necessary quality when dealing with the delicate politics of intergalactic peace. Yet, despite her cool exterior, she harbored a deep curiosity about the unknown corners of the galaxy. The strange, unexplored systems, the secrets buried in distant stars, these were the things that fascinated her more than any treaty or battle ever could. The mission had seemed simple at first: facilitate peace talks between the Quathians and the Kelshar. The Quathians, long regarded as a peaceful species, had recently been drawn into an alliance with the UEF, but their peace with the Kelshar had long been fragile. The Kelshar, who viewed every interaction as a potential conflict, had only agreed to the treaty under intense pressure from their allies. Alara's task was to ensure that nothing disrupted the delicate balance and to secure favorable terms for Earth. As the Ardent approached the Zendra system, Alara felt a twinge of unease. The peace talks had been set up in a neutral zone, a vast, uninhabited planet orbiting a binary star. It was an ideal location far from any major space routes, where no one would be disturbed. But even in the stillness of space, there was something unsettled in the air. The tension between the Quathians and the Kelshar was palpable, even from a distance. When the Ardent arrived at the rendezvous point, Alara was immediately met by a Quathian ambassador and a high-ranking Kelshar general. Their representatives were already in the meeting hall, preparing for the opening ceremony. Alara, wearing her military uniform with the sleek, crisp lines of a UAF officer, stepped out into the airlock and made her way to the chamber. The Quathians were a tall, ethereal species, their translucent skin shimmering under the room's artificial light. They moved with an elegance that spoke of their centuries of knowledge. The Kelshar, on the other hand, stood like warriors, their muscular forms tense and ready for conflict. Their eyes were full of distrust, their postures challenging. The discussions began with formal pleasantries. Alara, seated between the two sides, kept a neutral tone, carefully monitoring every word. The Quathians spoke of peace, of unity, while the Kelshar barely tolerated the conversation. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, and Alara could feel the storm brewing. She had seen this many times before, diplomatic talks that seemed to be going nowhere, where one wrong word could shatter the fragile calm. But then, something unexpected happened. As Alara reviewed the encrypted files sent by UEF Command, a standard procedure for any high-level mission, she stumbled upon a strange message buried deep within the transmission. It was not from the UEF. It was from an unknown source. The message was old, its origins lost in the folds of time. But the words were chilling. Never provoke a human. T first. Alara thought it was a mistake, a garbled transmission, perhaps. But as she decrypted the message, she realized it was something much more significant. The message spoke of a galactic law, one passed down by ancient civilizations that span the stars. It was a warning. Humanity, with its boundless potential for both creation and destruction, was a force unlike any other. The message went on to explain that humanity's involvement in the galactic sphere, its ingenuity, its violence, its potential for unexpected power, would eventually trigger an event that could unravel the fabric of the universe itself. The warning was clear. Humanity was an unanticipated variable in the galaxy's great design, and once they unlocked their true potential, everything would change. The implications were staggering. Could this be the reason so many alien species feared humans? Why the galaxy seemed to keep its distance? And why the Quathians and Kelshar were locked in an endless struggle for power? Was humanity really a threat on the scale the message suggested? Just as Alara was processing the gravity of the message, the peace talks took a dramatic turn. A blinding flash lit up the room, and before anyone could react, the Kelshar struck. They had launched an attack, an unexpected, brutal assault. Weapons fire echoed through the chambers, and the room erupted into chaos. The Kelshar, who had appeared peaceful moments ago, had been planning this for days. The Quathians fought back, but they were not prepared for the ferocity of the Kelshar's attack. Alara's team rushed to defend the diplomats, but it was clear the Kelshar had been secretly working with an unknown power, one that had been manipulating the negotiations from behind the scenes. The surprise attack wasn't just about gaining an upper hand, it was about sending a message. As the conflict erupted outside, Alara's mind raced. The encrypted message, the ancient warning, it was all connected. Humanity was somehow at the center of this web. The Kelshar's aggression wasn't just about their territorial disputes with the Quathians. There was something much deeper at play, and humanity, for better or worse, had unknowingly become the key to it all. The galactic balance, fragile as it was, hung in the balance. And Captain Alara Jansen knew that the truth of the warning had only just begun to reveal itself. The question was no longer whether humanity could broker peace, it was whether humanity could survive what they were about to awaken. Captain Alara Jansen stood in the UEF's Central Command Hall, the weight of the encrypted message still heavy in her hands. The peace talks had collapsed in a violent explosion of gunfire, leaving her and her team barely escaping the full-scale war the Kelshar had initiated. Now, back on Earth, she found herself not in the comfort of a quiet military debriefing, but in a battle of political intrigue that was far more dangerous than any combat she had faced before. Alara had come to Earth with one simple mission: report the facts, share the message she had uncovered, and explain the urgency. But as she stepped into the UEF's command center, she quickly realized the situation was far more complicated. The leadership, as divided as the alien factions she had just left behind, was at odds about what to do with the cryptic warning. Some of the UEF command, particularly those in the civilian sector, wanted to suppress the message, fearful that revealing it would cause widespread panic. The galaxy, though vast, was already precarious. If word spread that humanity's potential could lead to unimaginable destruction, it could destabilize relations with other species. There was also the risk of sparking mass fear in the general population. To many, the idea of humanity being at the center of a cosmic catastrophe seemed almost laughable, something better left buried. On the other side, a powerful faction within the UEF's military saw this ancient message as an opportunity to use humanity's unique potential to assert control over the galaxy. Led by General Rorik, a hardline strategist who believed in humanity's right to dominate, they argued that the warning was a sign that humanity should no longer play the role of a passive participant in galactic politics. Instead, Earth should seize this moment to take command, harnessing the cosmic force the message spoke of to cement their place at the top. Alara felt the weight of the decision growing heavier with each passing moment. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and now it was her job to help decide which path humanity would take. But there was something unsettling about the growing military influence within the UEFA hunger for power that Alara had never noticed before. The lines between right and wrong were becoming blurred. It wasn't long before Alara realized the true scope of the conflict. As the political debate raged on, she uncovered something even more disturbing. There were hidden factions within the UEF working with alien powers to develop a weapon that would harness the very forces humanity had yet to understand. These factions were not only manipulating the current political landscape, but also playing with dangerous forces that could very well lead to the destruction they feared. The Kelshar's sudden attack, she now realized, wasn't random. It was a calculated move, designed to distract the UEF while other events unfolded in the background. The Kelshar were being manipulated, not by their own hand, but by a much larger power one that had been pulling the strings from the shadows. Alara's mind raced as she pieced the puzzle together. The ancient species that had sent the warning the Shokharians had once tried to contain an even greater threat, a force known as the Void. The Void wasn't just a weapon or galactic disaster, it was a cosmic entity, an ancient power capable of collapsing entire dimensions. According to the encrypted message, humanity, because of their untapped potential, was the only species capable of unlocking the secrets hidden within a powerful relic, an artifact that had been lost for centuries. If this artifact were found, it could give humanity the power to either control the void or be consumed by it. But Allura wasn't sure which option would be worse, unlocking the artifact and risking everything, or allowing humanity's future to slip away in the hands of those who sought to control it. She couldn't shake the terrifying thought that humanity's potential was both a blessing and a curse. As she delved deeper into her investigation, Allura discovered that her own government was playing a dangerous game. High-ranking UEF officials, men and women she had trusted, were secretly working with alien factions to seek out the artifact. They weren't concerned with the galaxy's well-being. They were concerned with their own power. The political machinations inside the UEF had a much darker purpose: to use the relic to manipulate the emerging cosmic threat and bend it to Earth's will. Her investigation put her in direct danger. Her old friend and trusted colleague, Captain Drace Maller, now turned enemy, betrayed her, tipping off the conspirators about her growing suspicion. He revealed the location of the relic, a lost planet deep in uncharted space. The betrayal stung, but it also propelled Allura forward. If her former friend could be so easily swayed by the promise of power, how many others within the UEF could be complicit in the scheme? The lines between loyalty and betrayal blurred. Allura now had to make a choice: expose the conspiracy within her own government, risking everything she had worked for, or try to protect humanity from the very forces that were trying to use them as pawns in a galactic chess game. The very foundation of her beliefs was now in question. She had always believed in the mission of the UEF to bring peace, to protect humanity, but now she was beginning to wonder if the real enemy was within her own ranks. As she traveled to the lost planet, Allura found herself confronting another painful truth: humanity wasn't ready for them. Power the relic promised. They were still a young species, far too eager to dominate, far too vulnerable to the lure of absolute power. What if the message, the warning, had always been about more than just the void? What if the true danger was the darkness inside humanity itself? The deeper Allura went into the mystery, the more questions arose. The relic, buried within the lost planet's core, was said to hold the key to unlocking the void. But would humanity be the ones to control it, or would they be controlled by it? As the pieces of the conspiracy and the ancient warning began to come together, Allura realized that her fight wasn't just against an external enemy. It was a fight against the very nature of humanity itself. And as the stakes grew higher, she realized that no matter what choice she made, there would be no turning back. The ancient city of the Shokarians lay buried beneath the cracked surface of a forgotten planet, a relic of a time long past. Allura Jansen, after months of relentless pursuit, finally uncovered the hidden civilization. Her team navigated through the decaying ruins, the remnants of an advanced species who had once dared to challenge the impossible. The Shokarians had built this city as a monument to their failure, and now Allura could see the price of their hubris etched into the walls. Their attempts to seal away the void had only delayed the inevitable. The deeper Allura delved into the Shokarian archives, the more horrifying the truth became. They hadn't just been fighting the void, they had been trying to stop something much bigger. The void was never fully sealed. It had only been dormant, its power slowly growing, waiting for the right moment to awaken. The relic she'd been seeking, the artifact humanity was racing toward, was not merely a weapon. It was the key to the void's release, and the closer humanity came to unlocking it, the more they fed its hunger. As she stood in the heart of the ancient city, a sense of dread gripped her. The walls of the ruins seemed to pulse with a faint, rhythmic thrum, like a heartbeat, steady and ominous. She had heard rumors of humanity's potential, how they were seen as both a threat and a promise by other species. Now, in the silence of the Shokarian city, those rumors started to form a horrifying picture. Humanity was not an accidental creation of nature. They had not simply evolved like every other species in the galaxy. Their very genetic makeup had been engineered, a product of manipulation by ancient forces. The ancient species that had once created humanity, those who had orchestrated this grand design, had seeded Earth with a singular purpose: to unlock the void. Humanity was not simply a byproduct of time and evolution, but rather the chosen species to fulfill a cosmic prophecy. The genetic anomaly that made humans so unique was no accident. They were made for this moment. Their role in the galaxy had been written long before they'd even known how to wield the power they had unlocked. Humanity's entire history, from their first steps into the stars to their battles and diplomacy, had been preparing them for this cataclysmic moment. Alara stood frozen, the enormity of the revelation crushing her. Humanity's ingenuity, their resilience, their ability to overcome obstacles, all of it had been part of the plan. But for what? She had always believed in the power of the human spirit, in the ability of her people to rise above any challenge. Yet, now, she had to face the terrifying possibility that they were never meant to chart their own destiny. Humanity was nothing more than a pawn in a much larger game, a game played by beings long gone, with rules and purposes that no longer made sense. She was unsure if her species was the key to saving the galaxy, or if they were simply the trigger that would bring about its destruction. Her mind raced as she processed this revelation. How could humanity, with their immense potential, be used as mere tools of a greater design? The weight of history, of thousands of years of human struggle, seemed to crash down on her all at once. Every human triumph, every effort to create a better future, now felt hollow. What had they been fighting for? What did their struggle even mean if their future was already written? But in that moment, a flicker of resolve ignited within her. She couldn't accept that this was their only purpose. Humanity had fought too hard, grown too much, to simply be tools of an ancient design. There had to be another way. They had to make their own destiny, even if it meant defying the very forces that had shaped them. The rift that had started to form in the fabric of space-time seemed to mock her thoughts. As Alara and her team continued their search for answers, they learned that the artifact, the relic humanity was destined to unlock, was more than just a key. It was a test, a choice. Humanity's true power lay not in the ability to wield the void, but in their ability to resist it. To make a decision that would determine the fate of the galaxy. But who would make that choice? The factions within the UEF were already on the verge of war over how to use the relic, and if she wasn't careful, they would bring the galaxy to the brink of destruction. The military wanted to seize control of the relic, to harness its power and use it to assert Earth's dominance. The peaceful factions wanted to study the relic, understand it before it could fall into the wrong hands. Alara's mind shifted, torn between these two extremes. The choices she made would either save or doom them all. As she considered the options before her, the magnitude of the situation grew clearer. She could not allow the military to use humanity's potential as a weapon. She could not allow them to unleash the void and risk everything they had built. But if she did nothing, if she let the relic lie dormant, humanity would never escape the shadow of its creators. She had to act. It was a decision she knew would change everything. In a heart-wrenching moment, Alara activated the relic herself. The object pulsed in her hands as it hummed with ancient power. She felt the surge of energy rushing through her, as if the universe itself were reacting to her touch. She wasn't sure what she had expected, but it certainly wasn't the violent cosmic shift that followed. A brilliant explosion of light erupted, and the very fabric of space-time began to tear. The planet beneath them shook, the air thick with the sound of something ancient and hungry stirring deep beneath the surface. The void had awoken, but not in the way anyone had anticipated. Rather than simply releasing its destructive power, the void began to fight. It resisted, struggling against the pull of Alara's actions. Space and time began to unravel, twisting and warping as the forces of the void clashed with the artifact's energy. The galaxy was shifting, its stars and planets warping like marbles on a glass table. Alara watched, helpless, as everything she had known began to fracture. She had no idea what was happening. All she knew was that she had taken a step toward a future where nothing would ever be the same again. The void was no longer a distant threat, it was real, and it was responding to humanity's interference. In that moment, Alara understood something deep and terrible. Humanity's place in the galaxy had never been clear. But now, as the galaxy spiraled into chaos, one thing was certain: they were the catalyst for a cosmic event, unlike anything the universe had ever seen. Alora Jansen stood alone in the aftermath of the explosion. The energy released from the relic had shattered her world, not in the way she had expected, but with a far more profound consequence. The void had not dissipated, it had adapted, its vast, intangible presence now intertwined with the fabric of the universe itself. The result was chaos, unpredictable, untamable chaos. As Elora stared into the star-streaked sky of the devastated planet, she felt the first true weight of the cost of her actions. The galaxies were no longer the same. Strange temporal anomalies were cropping up in every corner of the universe. Time loops, shifts in reality, entire civilizations disappearing in a blink, only to reappear moments later in alternate dimensions. Space itself seemed to buckle, bending and twisting as if reality itself had lost its grip. It was as though the very structure of existence had begun to fray at the edges. Humanity had unwittingly placed itself at the center of a cosmic storm, and now they were caught in its eye. The consequences of her intervention were far beyond anything Alora could have foreseen. The void, once seen as a cataclysmic threat to be controlled or destroyed, was no longer a force to be reckoned with in the traditional sense. The artifact had not merely triggered the void's awakening, it had altered its nature, intertwining it with the universe in ways no one, not even the ancient Shokharians, had anticipated. In her attempt to stop it, Alora had unwittingly pushed the universe into a state of imbalance. The void wasn't a force to be defeated or contained, it was a necessary cycle, a part of the universe's grand design, and her interference had upset that design. The evolutionary process of the cosmos, which had been flowing in its own natural course for eons, had been disrupted, and the consequences would not be easily undone. The void's purpose was not malevolent, it was a necessary destruction, a cleansing force that would eventually bring about the next stage of existence. But now, because of humanity's meddling, the universe had been thrown off its axis, and the cycle of rebirth would be delayed for millennia. As Elora stood there, struggling to comprehend the enormity of what had happened, the voices of her crew echoed in her mind. Many had hoped that activating the relic would lead to the salvation of humanity, that they would rise as the dominant force in the galaxy, ready to shape the future. But the universe had other plans. Humanity's potential was not a weapon to be wielded. It was a force too powerful to be understood. Their ingenuity, their drive, had always been their strength, but it was also their greatest flaw. They had been too quick to act, too eager to control what they did not fully understand. Now, as the universe groaned under the weight of its own distortion, Alora felt the realization settle in. Humanity's actions were not the key to the galaxy's future. They had been manipulated, designed to be the catalyst for a greater purpose, one that was beyond their comprehension. And in trying to control that power, they had merely set the stage for their own downfall. The truth was simple, and yet terrifying. Humanity was not meant to rule the galaxy. They had always been a part of a cycle that had been in place long before they had taken their first steps into space. They had been engineered, their potential shaped by forces beyond their understanding, to bring about an event that would reset the universe, a cycle of destruction and rebirth that had played out countless times across the cosmos. Humanity had unwittingly become part of that cycle, and now they were trapped in it. As the temporal anomalies continued to spread, Alora's thoughts turned inward. She had always believed that humanity's strength lay in their resilience, in their ability to adapt, to rise above their circumstances. But now she was forced to confront the fact that humanity's very existence had been orchestrated by ancient powers. The question that haunted her every waking moment was this: was humanity meant to be the rulers of the galaxy, or were they destined to be forever entwined in the cycle of the void? In the aftermath of the chaos, Alora began to make her way back to Earth, though she knew there was no easy way to explain what had happened. The once proud human empire, built on the foundation of their military strength and diplomatic efforts, now seemed like an afterthought in the face of the vast, incomprehensible forces that they had awoken. How could she return to her people, to the leadership of the United Earth Federation, with the knowledge that they were not the masters of their own fate? How could she convince them to accept the truth of their insignificance in the grand scheme of the cosmos? As Alora gazed out into the galaxy, now forever changed by the ripples of her actions, The weight of the lingering question pressed down on her. Had humanity succeeded in unlocking their true potential, or had they only ensured their own destruction? The voice of the ancient warning echoed through her mind once again: never provoke a human. That once simple rule, understood by the galaxy's civilizations, now carried an entirely different meaning. It had been a warning, yes, but perhaps it was not a warning of humanity's inherent threat. Perhaps it was a warning of humanity's potential to disrupt the natural order of things, to awaken forces far greater than themselves. The universe had feared humanity's power, but now, as Allura stood on the precipice of an uncertain future, she wondered if that fear was justified. Could it be that humanity had outgrown the purpose for which they had been created? Could it be that in their pursuit of control, they had accidentally freed themselves from the chains of ancient manipulation? Or had they simply doomed themselves, caught forever in a cycle they could never escape? The void was not simply a force of destruction. It was a cycle of life and death, a constant renewal that had been in place for as long as the universe itself. Humanity had played their part in that cycle, whether they had known it or not. And now, as the galaxy spun into chaos, Allura realized that the universe would one day find its balance again. It always did. But the question remained, would humanity be part of the rebuilding, or would they be forever lost in the interdimensional rifts, victims of their own actions? The cost of awakening the void had been steep, and humanity would have to face the consequences for generations to come. But as Allura stood alone, contemplating the vast, shifting cosmos before her, she realized that one truth remained unshaken. The universe, in all its complexity, had never been as simple as it seemed. Humanity had just begun to understand that.